shadow in the government's game. Pawn as a child with no face and no name. They stole my past to leave me cold and alone. Always searching for a place I could call home. I was lost in the dark, just a tool in the hand, till she pulled me close and helped me understand. Now the fire inside is starting to rise. I can see the truth through 1,000 lies. Now I tear through the veil, leave holes in the sky. I can read every thought in the blink of an eye. Danica, my witch, she's the magic in me. Yeah, I finally found what they took from me. With a hellhound beside me, I'm standing my ground. No longer a ghost that's never been found. In the dead of the night, I can hear the call. All the ghosts of my past scratching through the wall. My eyes change colors, the power has grown. With Crowley the hound, I'm never alone. I used to be hollow, a man made of glass, but now I am reclaiming every year that has passed. Every memory is falling right back into place. I know every name and I remember every face. Now I tear through the veil, leave holes in the sky. I can read every thought in the blink of an eye. Danica, my witch, she's a magic in me. Yeah, I finally found what they took from me. With a hell on beside me, I'm standing my ground. No longer a ghost that's never been found. I ain't running no more, yeah, I'm ready to fight. Gonna settle that debt in the depth of the night. They tried to break me, they tried to erase, but they can't hide the blood from the scars on my face. The veil is thin and the engine is hot. I'm taking back everything that they thought I forgot. Now I tear through the veil, leave holes in the sky. I can read every thought in the blink of an eye. Danica, my witch, she's the magic in me. Yeah, I finally found what they took from me. With a hellhound beside me, I'm standing my ground. No longer a ghost that's never been found. I remember it all now. Every single face, I'm calling for you in the dead of the night.
Hello, everybody. My name is Henry. For those of you that don't know, for those of you that do, welcome back. Tonight, I got a special treat for you. I don't know that anybody's ever talked about what I'm about ready to talk about on any kind of a platform on YouTube, but in any case, I'm going to tell you a couple stories about things that happened out there. Tonight we're going to talk about when cryptid creatures get on motor vessels, otherwise known as barges, what a lot of people call them, on the Ohio, Illinois, Mississippi, Missouri rivers. Now this first story took place a long time ago, back in the late 70s, early 80s. Now, let me give you a little bit of a rundown about these rivermen and these motor vessels. That's what they call them out there, motor vessels. A lot of people mistakenly call them barges. Barges is what they push. And each one of those ships out there has a name. The particular ship I'm going to talk about tonight was called the Motor Vessel Hornet. It was owned by River City Towing at one time, along with another barge, and then later on they bought another one, and then something happened and that person lost them and they got sold off to another company. They're still out there today. They may have changed the names, but they're still out there because I've seen this one I'm going to talk about tonight a few times on the river. Now, I don't know if any of you know anything about this or about the guys that works out there. Now, I can say this because my dad worked out there. My dad's been dead for quite a long time now. But them guys he worked with, even though they may have disagreed on certain things, out there they was a coherent mess. I mean, they hung together like glue. They may not agree with every single thing, but you mess with one of those guys, you had to mess with all of them. And let me tell you something. Them men out there were stronger than bull oxes. They had to be to carry them big binders and ratchets, lines, ropes. If you wasn't very big when you first got out there, I guarantee you, you'd beef up real quick like. Now, I used to ride on there with my dad when he worked on there. My dad started out as a deckhand. Well, he worked his way into being the chief engineer. That's where you control the motors in the back there, and you also control the steering. Yeah, the pilot and the captain do the steering, but at any time the engineer can unhook their steering from up there at the wheelhouse back there in the engine room, and he can steer that boat. And I know you're probably thinking, if you've ever seen one of these things going up down the river, how in the hell does somebody in the engine room keep that thing from running aground? Well, very simple. They all carry radios. Now, if my dad had to shut the steering down to the wheelhouse, the pilot house, he could do so. But he would have them deckhands, first mates, second mates, up there at the end of the tow, plus up in the wheelhouse. They would all be feeding information back to my dad. And that's how they would guide it, if they had to. If there was a steering problem with the sticks upstairs, there ain't no steering wheels up there like you see on them ocean boats. They have sticks. And they use those to the rudders. But let me tell you something. Yeah, there may be some of them people that may have just a little scrape with the law. Maybe fighting or something. Once they got on that boat, land law cannot touch them. It has to be river patrol. So, just a little education there. I don't mean they was bad, because they wasn't. But I'm just saying. Now these guys, they would work 8 hours on, 8 hours off. During their off time, they could sit in the galley, which is the kitchen. And let me tell you something. They have some of the best foods and some of the best cooks you ever seen in your life. Them boys would eat better there most times than they did when they went home. Any time, day or night, man, you could get up and go in that galley. There was 50 different types of ice cream. All varieties. The cook made sure there was cakes, pies, and extra food that would be put into great big giant refrigerators. Them boys would come in and they worked up a powerful hunger. They'd go in there and pop something in the microwave. Or they'd grab a big bowl of ice cream. Even in the winter, I've seen them boys grab ice cream and eat it while they was sipping on coffee. Now go figure. Sometimes you'd see them sitting in the TV room, sharpening their knives up, in case they had to cut a line. Sometimes some of the newer ones would be in there making lines and stuff, tying ropes, maybe making bumpers. There was all kinds of things that could occupy their off time, or they could go up and go to sleep. But I got a chance to ride a few times with my dad. Well, this particular time, it was in the winter. They was going to take a quick trip from Alton area up to St. Paul, Minnesota. It hadn't been too bad of a winter. So I was allowed to go. And I got to stay in the visitor's cabin. The visitor's bedroom. It was a special room that was a level down, 2 levels down below the pilot house. The wheelhouse, what we called it. And sometimes them boys would bring their girlfriends on or their wives. Of course, they had to get permission from the company and from the captain and pilot. But unless that deckhand was during his 8 hours off, the wife or girlfriend couldn't be outside of the room. Just something that you may not know. Now, during his off time, she could go with him down into the galley, into the TV room. But otherwise, no, she had to stay in her room. That was to keep trouble down, make sure there wasn't no mutiny going on. And yes, things like that did happen. But anyway, this one particular time, it was going to be a real good trip. My favorite captain was on there. Now, what you're about to hear is no way a put down. If you knew this guy and you met him, 9 times out of 10, he'd have a hat that said what I'm about to say here in a few minutes, or he had to have a shirt. And he was proud of it. I know this is going to sound terrible, but it's not. Really. This guy was from down there along the Gulf Coast. Now they call it the Gulf of America. Back then it was called the Gulf of Mexico. And he come from an area. Now this guy, this captain, was pretty tall and not fat, but just a little chunky. The darkest hair you ever seen, it was real wavy, and he combed it all back. He had this little bitty mustache like Higgins on Magnum P.I. That guy spoke like he was a billionaire, and that he'd went to some fancy schools. But that was just the way he talked. The guy was smart about a lot of things, but his name was Captain Norris. The first time I met this guy, I got on the boat with Dad. And he was in the galley getting him a big bowl of ice cream to take up to the wheelhouse. This guy could eat. He had rings on his fingers. He wore this blue-like jumpsuit. He stuck his big bear paw out, and he was real dark complected. He stuck his paw out, and he said, "They called me Captain Norris." So how you do, sir? He goes, "You can call me Captain Norris, but he said, I'd even be even prouder if you called me Coon Ass." I know you're thinking, well, you terrible little bastard. No. Where he's from, there is an area, and these people, you calling them sir, may not mean much to them. They would prefer you call them a coon ass. They're French and African mix. And I know I've met his family. I've met some of his people down there. And every one of them was saying, well, hey, you just call me coon ass. I felt plumb bad about even saying it. He was proud of it. He had shirts and hats made up. I'm a dignified coon ass. I was like, Jesus Christ. I never ever called him that. I didn't want that big old boy to come down on me, but he was proud of that. He was proud of the name. Well, he was real friendly, so sometimes when my dad's asleep, I go upstairs and sit in the wheelhouse and take him up a bowl of ice cream. I get on the speaker. Hey, do you need anything from down here in the galley? He might have me make him a sandwich or bring him up a big glass of tea or, hell, maybe even a big bowl of ice cream. That dude had a sweet tooth as big as he was. Well, this one little guy, I mean, he was little. My dad was like 5'7", 5'8", 175 pounds. I was sitting in the galley, and I didn't see half the deckhands because some of them were sleeping. And I seen some of them as they went past the galley out to check the tow. And this one little bitty guy, and I mean he was little. He was like maybe 5'1", maybe 125. And that's if you put a couple of slugs in his pocket. Kind of receding hairline, but it was, I mean, a fire orange. Now, I'm going to say this. This is funny as hell. He come down with a t-shirt on and was carrying him a long john shirt. The upper part of his arm up here was real tiny, but the forearms, dude, they were huge. Mind you, Popeye, and that's kind of who he looked like. He had that one squinted eye, kind of talk out the side of his mouth, and he could mock old Popeye. They called him Dickie Bird. Now, just the name alone, I wasn't going to dare ask him why they called him that, because I figured it was something personal. But as I got to know him a little bit, I found out why they called him Dickie Bird. When I'd be up in the wheelhouse setting with Captain Norris, sometimes those guys would be talking back and forth on them radios, and they'd be talking to the captain upstairs in the wheelhouse. And you'd hear bird noises. And I asked Captain Norris one day, I said, what the hell is that? There ain't no seagulls out here that I've seen yet. Usually you see them like at the locks. He said, oh hell, it's that Dickie Bird down there walking bird noises. I said, get out of here. He goes, no, really. He does that shit all the time. He does some crazy shit down there. Well, the more I got to know him, the better I liked this guy. He was funny as hell. He'd be down there, and he'd be doing bird noises, whistling bird sounds, and he'd key the mic and forget to stop whistling, and he'd be doing that, and all of a sudden somebody would holler on the radio, hey, what the hell do you want? Shut that damn bird noise up and tell me what you need. Oh hell, I forgot to release the trigger. Roger that. That winter, that crazy little shit, I mean, he was funny as hell. He worked. I mean, he worked harder than most guys because he was smaller than most of them. But he could carry those lock lines and big ratchets and shit. You swear him down, his legs were gonna, because his legs were bowed. You swear him down, his legs were gonna bow and his ass was gonna hit the floor. But never did. He carried his weight. Sometimes he'd have to make 2 trips because he couldn't carry all the stuff that a lot of the other guys were carrying, but he'd make 2 trips by himself, pull his own weight. But he was comical as shit. That winter we was sitting up there, and me and Captain Norris was sitting there watching him during the daytime. They got the tow all checked. Now they was pushing 3 wide and 15 long. So those guys were working their ass off. And every time they come to a lock, they'd have to break that tow up and send part of the tow into the lock, take it out the other side, run the cables, let it go out, and then they'd bring the other barges and the motor vessel in. And then once they raised them up and shot them out the other side, they'd have to hook back up to the ones that had went in before. That Dickie Bird was fast. I mean, he was like greased lightning. I mean, he was just fast, and he was good at what he did, but he had a crazy side. He liked to play, liked to have fun. He made life interesting out there. He could make anybody out there laugh by some of the crazy shit he was doing. This particular day, there was probably about 8 inches of snow on top of them barges. When he got done, some of the other guys was standing out there at the end of the tow, smoking a cigarette, maybe spitting into the water, just in there shooting the shit. Dickie Bird climbed up on this little ladder and got on top of them barges, laid down, and started doing that Popeye noise. Then he started in whistling like a bird. And these guys out there got to laughing. That crazy little bastard laid up there and made a snow angel. Then got up, went face down, up a little ways further, and made another snow angel, but made it upside down. They was all laughing. Captain Norris was laughing. He said, "Look at that little red-headed bastard down there. He's lost his goddamn mind." And everybody just laughed about it. When he come walking back, I mean, he was covered front to back, head to toe with snow. He would wait until he got right at the end of them barges, getting ready to step onto the motor vessel, and he would sit up there and holler on the radio up to the pilot house. And you would hear him, "Hey, look, I'm a snow dog." And all of a sudden, he'd just start shaking and throwing snow everywhere. But them guys would pick up snowballs and throw them at him. Next thing you know, there was a snowball fight. They were a fun bunch of guys. But that Dickie Bird, they was always playing pranks on everybody. Nobody ever really got mad. Those that didn't like the pranks wasn't made to participate. But most of those guys like to joke around. Well, it was a beautiful trip. Got up there almost St. Paul, Minnesota. And if you know anything about these motor vessels, you don't just go upstream, come to a lock wall or lock, and just go straight in. No, you have to wait your turn. It's like at a traffic light. You have to wait your turn. So these barges sometimes pulls over to the edge so other vessels can get around. And they just sit there idle. Well, on this particular night, it started a little skip of snow coming in. Temperature was probably about 40, 45 degrees out. Dickie Bird was on duty, and these other deckhands and first and second mate was out there. And they was checking lines and rearranging things out there, make sure everything's good for go, that in case they hit a big patch of ice, they was set. I was up in the wheelhouse of Captain Norris, sitting up there talking, keeping him company, and he was keeping me company. I was having a ball up there watching them guys down there. Looked like a bunch of ants down there working. My dad was back in the engine room. I don't know what he was doing, but he was back there doing something, and I want to sit up there where I could look around and watch the river and watch all the animals and stuff when they shine the spotlights. Well, the other guys got their stuff done, and they went to see if Dickie Bird and this other guy needed help. Dickie Bird said, "No, we got it, and we could hear it on the radio." That's how I know the conversation. So the two guys was like, "We're about pros, we're heading in." Dickie Bird and this other guy was still out there. They were just finishing up minor things. Then they was going to come in. Well, like I said, they was probably 20, 25 feet away from the shoreline. And it was a wooded area. There wasn't no road there or nothing. Just forest. Well, there was no need for the spotlight to be on, so it wasn't on. Those guys out there had lights, and if they needed the spotlights on, they could have radioed, and Norris would have turned the spotlights on for them to see had they needed them, but they didn't. But he's out there working, and, them motor vessels they don't seem like they're very loud when you're sitting on the roadside watching them go by, but you get on one of them, yeah, they're pretty loud. They make a hell of a rumble. Well, they all wear life jackets. That's a safety thing. You have to. I don't care how good you can swim. You still have to wear it when it's mandatory. Dickie Bird was always adjusting his life preserver. Life jacket, life vest, whatever you want to call it. And he's out there adjusting it. And, of course, the other guy's on the other side of the barges. But Dickie Bird swears to me damn he heard a growl. And you can hear the whole conversation. They're talking back and forth. And of course it's also feeding up to the wheelhouse. And we was sitting there laughing. Captain Norris said, "Well, if he wasn't so damn small, it'd fit him a lot better, but I guess we're going to have to order him a kid's vest." And of course then you hear over the radio, "I heard that." Well, hell, was all laughing. Well, again, Dickie Bird comes over the radio and he's talking to the other hand out there working. He goes, "Are you hearing something over there?" And he goes, "I don't know, I can't hear much of anything." He goes, "Well, I keep hearing growling over here." Now, this is probably about 1, 2 o'clock in the morning. Been tied up there maybe about an hour, waiting our turn. Captain Norris hit the spotlight, and when he did, there was something at the end of that last toe up there that was peeking up and over the barge. And it was just a quick glimpse of it we caught. Couldn't really decide if it was a bear, a wolf, but it was damn good size. So Captain Norris hollered down and told Dickie Bird, he said, "Hey, you might want to kind of pick it up. Is there something out there with you? We thought we'd seen something down there." Had amber-colored eyes. Dickie Bird goes, "I've been hearing growling periodically, but I haven't seen anything yet." He no more than said that, and as he stood up straight, and he wasn't very big, 5'1", this thing stood up too, just quick, like it was, like he got startled, or this thing had got startled. Well, Dickie Bird heard it again, but the other guy heard it too and seen it, and he took off running back to the vessel, and he kept telling Dickie Bird, come on, it's at the end of the toe." But Dickie Bird, he looks around, and all of a sudden he catches a glimpse of it peeking around the side of the barge at him. So he takes off running. This thing goes on the other side of the barge and is paralleling him. Now, if you know anything about these barges, there's a walkway around each barge. So when you get to the end of one barge, there's a cut-across walkway too, besides the one headed toward the motor vessel. This thing was paralleling him, but it couldn't hardly see him because he was so damn short. And it's really got its neck stretched out running. Then it would go down on all fours and it'd run. Then it would stand back up and run on two legs. And Norris was hollering on the radio, "You better speed it up, Dickie Bird, because whatever the hell it is, it's trying to cut you off." Well, Dickie Bird got there first and he cut to the left. And this thing cut to the left from where it was at. So now it's where Dickie Bird was running. And Dickie Bird's over on the outer edge. And he's a-running. Well, Norris sounded the general alarm, which meant all hands on deck. Get ready. The ones that was already on duty grabbed their coats and was headed out there. They had fanned out. And this thing was so smart that when it seen them doors come open, the light through the door, it ducked in between the ends. Dickie Bird was so damn scared because he could hear this thing coming and a panting. These guys was like, Dickie Bird, slow down, it's us." Dickie Bird was so damn scared, he run, got down on his knees, went underneath between these guys' legs, and then picked up and kept on running until he got inside the vessel. Well, those guys was shining their lights, and of course the spotlight was going. Couldn't see it. Well, everybody made their way back inside the boat, and they barricaded the door. And they started barricading the galley door and locking everything down. Every door was going to be locked and shut down. All the lights were turned up. Now, on the side where the shore was, there was a big splash. Well, Norris said everybody stays indoors till we figure out what this summit is and where it's at. Now, if you know anything about some of these captains and riverboat pilots, some of them do carry guns. In case of a mutiny. But anyway, and out there it's captain's law. If you grab a fire axe because you're into it with somebody, yes, that captain can and probably will shoot your ass if he can't talk you down. So just so you know, river laws. Well, everybody stayed indoors. I was still up in the wheelhouse, watching, looking around, trying to see what the hell this thing was. Because there had been bears and stuff that get on the toes at nighttime when they're pulled over to the edge, just waiting for their turn to go through a lock, or waiting for extra barges to be brought to them, or waiting for a boat to come pick up barges off of them. So it's not uncommon that a bear... Well, my dad wasn't too much scared of anything. A few things, but not a whole lot of shit. Captain Norris called him up there, and he come up from the engine room, come there by the galley and the TV room, and started coming the stairs up. Because Captain Norris told him, don't come from the outside, come from the inside of the ship. So, I'm sitting there. My dad's like, "You still up?" I was like, "Yeah, I'm sitting up here with Captain Norris." I said, "Watching the thrill of the hunt." Captain Norris goes, "I think we got a damn bear out there, but I ain't sure it had orange-colored eyes." My dad said, "Well, we'll go out and have a look." So we got a few of the deckhands, and they went down and grabbed some pipe wrenches and cheater pipes and whatever they could put in their hands. Well, they headed out there, and the spotlights come on, and they're out there, flashlights shining, and they walked out all them barges, never seen nothing. Dad come past them snow angels that Dickie Bird had been making, and he started laughing, telling Norris, he said, the only thing I see out here is these damn angels that Dickie Bird's been out here making. And all of a sudden my dad just shut up. He goes, Captain, gonna need you to come down here for a minute. Captain Norris looked at me and he goes, he sounds pretty serious. I said, yeah, that's a serious tone that my dad got. Must be something pretty important. So now, see, I wasn't allowed to go out on the tow because I was just a visitor. I had to stay inside the vessel. Now, once in a while, me and the cook would go up on the deck right below the wheelhouse and sit out there and play cards on a nice day. Otherwise, I was supposed to stay inside the vessel. So I stayed up in the wheelhouse, and Norris went out there, and I seen them out there talking. They wasn't talking on the radio, they was talking amongst themselves, and they started shining the flashlight toward the woods. Periodically, you'd see a set of orange glowing eyes peeking out of the brush. But other than that, they didn't see nothing. They still couldn't figure out what the hell them orange glowing eyes were. Kind of an amber color. He goes, well, and he started pointing. I'm up there looking, so I grabbed the binoculars and looked. Some of the biggest damn dog tracks I'd ever seen. I mean, they were huge. A St. Bernard could have put his paw in the track, and his paw would not have covered them tracks that was in the snow down there. They tracked this thing all over them barges, down through the aisles. Well, that wasn't the only place there was tracks. There was tracks that led onto the motor vessel that went all along the outside, all the way back to the engine room, around behind the engine room, and back up, and then back toward the barges. Well, they come back into the wheelhouse, my dad and Captain Norris, and Captain goes, what do you think? Dad said, you still packing? Every trip. He goes, well, you might want to get that thing. He goes, right here. He had it right on his side. He goes, well, all I can say is, better keep that thing loaded, because whatever that thing was, somehow it got aboard. It had to have pulled itself up, or it followed one of them wires up. Well, everybody that night was pretty scared. I don't think anybody slept. Next day, shoved off, because it was our turn to go up river. Well, they talked about it for a long time after that. About a year later, during the summer, they was headed back up to St. Paul. My dad and Dickie Bird and a bunch of others and Captain Norris. Well, again, they had to wait their turn, so they pulled over in this spot, which was pretty close to where they had pulled over that winter's night. Well, they was probably going to be there for 2 days, so everybody just kind of relaxed. You know, the guys had to go out, and check the tow, but other than that, they was kind of relaxed. But Dickie Bird, my dad, and Captain Norris remembered what happened that winter's night up there. So they wasn't resting too easy while they was sitting there that close to shore. Well, next day come along, and they noticed some people walking along the shoreline, waving, and so Dad and Dickie Bird is standing out there, just kind of enjoying the warm summer day. Dickie Bird said, hey, I ain't on duty. Dad said, I ain't either. He goes, why don't we just get on shore there and do some fishing? So a couple of other deckhands, they got the yawl down, which is a small boat they use for transporting guys off of the motor vessel to the shore, or in case the motor vessel would happen to sink or capsize, you would get into the yawl and take it to get away to safety. Well, these guys loaded up, and they headed to shore there, and some of them got off and was fishing with it. These people kept walking by. And my dad was a talker, kind of like me. Our mouths run like a bell clapper on a goose's ass. And that's putting it nicely. This man and his wife with his kids is walking, and he walks straight toward Dad, and he goes, hey, come here. He goes, I noticed you guys was here last night. He goes, yeah, I'm going to be here for a couple days. And explain the situation, you know. And Dad goes, but we don't like the idea, especially not right in here. And the guy said, oh, really? He goes, yeah, last winter we had a problem. Something got on board the ship and scared the shit out of the crew. The guy said, well, you know we got bears up here. He goes, this wasn't no bear. It was big, giant dog tracks. And that guy looked at his wife and he said, hey, kids, get away from the shore there and go over there where our fishing poles are and stay away from the water for a minute. We'll be right there. Well, them kids went over there and was playing. He looked at my dad and he goes, you know, we come up here during the summer, but at nighttime, we batten the hatches on that cabin. We don't come out after dark. So he said, just so you know. Dad said, oh, because of the bears? Not much of the bears. It's what's roaming these woods at nighttime along this river. Dad said, crazy people? And he goes, no. These are dog men. But Dad goes, it's funny you say that, because these tracks that we found in the snow was like huge. He goes, yeah, they can run on all fours, and while they're running on all fours, straighten up and run on twos and never miss a beat. Dad, you ever notice their eye color? And he goes, well, hell yeah. They're amber color. That's what we seen that night too, along the wood line. We said the tracks was on the barges. He goes, sometimes they get curious. But he said every once in a while you get a rogue one and it'll try to kill you. Or chase you. The guy said, well, while the kids are there, I'll go ahead and tell you. He said, a few years ago, there were some people killed just right down the river there in a cabin. They tried to let on like it was bears, but he said, I'm telling you, it wasn't bears. There's dog men in these woods. And he said, most times they won't bother you. But then there's other times you might run onto the wrong ones. So he said, we don't take no chances. He said, me and my wife here have guns and we know how to use them. We lock ourselves in at night and we don't come out till the next day when the sun comes up. He said, that family got killed just right down there. There used to be a cabin, he said, down there, and they got killed, and they done away with the cabin so people wouldn't go poking around, but they said it was a rogue bear, and he said, it wasn't no damn bear. He said, I seen the tracks. It was a dog man. My dad knew about dog men a little bit because of the haunted farm we lived in. So he didn't scoff about it. He just agreed with the guy, and The guy looked at my dad and he started smiling. He goes, "You've encountered them before, ain't you?" My dad said, "Well, yeah, at a haunted farm we used to live at." He goes, "Then you know about as much as anybody," which is not a whole lot. He said, "Just take precaution when you guys are tied up at nighttime. I wouldn't go out just one of yous. That's the way normally we go out in twos or fours, or sometimes even six of us. We never ever just send one guy out." He goes, "Well," he said, "before I'd go out," he said, "I would really do some looking around that boat before you step outside, because you never know. They can swim just like people. And these things are strong as a bull ox." That's why I was wondering how that sumbitch got aboard that night. He could have probably just swam out there and grabbed one of them Tonys or one of them lines, pulled himself up and over. You wouldn't believe how strong they are. My dad goes, "Well, that night we did hear a big splash." And he goes, "Yeah, it probably run and jumped off into the water and went back into the woods, and that's probably what was staring at you." Well, Dad went and told the deckhand about it and went and told Captain Norris, and they decided everybody should come back to the boat, and they was going to head on upstream a little ways and get away from that place, and it just give them all the creeps. And like I said, there have been bears that have gotten aboard, be out there on the tow. Wolverine or time or two. But that night, it was something totally different. It was a real dog man that got aboard. And I ain't too sure, this probably happened before, but what these guys actually talk about, the people that don't work out there? Hell no. Because if they decide to leave that barge company and go to another one, if they filled out some kind of a form or anything, or turned that in, it would make them look like they're crazy, especially back in those days. Now today, maybe not so much. Back in those times, yeah, people would have thought they cheese slipped off their cracker and fell on the floor and a dog ate it. So, they didn't talk about the outsiders. They would talk about it amongst themselves, the ones that experienced it that night, like Dickie Bird and a couple of these other guys and my dad. And sometimes they'd laugh about it. But deep down, there was a deep fear of the cryptid called Dogman. And for good reason. I mean, these things are an apex killer. Can be. Everybody thinks the great white shark's bad. Yeah, in the ocean he is. But on shore, on land, the Dogman, pound for pound, could keep up with a great white. And a lot of people think, "Oh, Bigfoot whipped Dogman." I don't think so. I beg to differ on that. Bigfoot may be big, he may be strong. But if you ever come across a Dogman and see one face to face, you might rethink it. Now you hear a lot of these goofballs out there telling, "I took an AK-47, I'm going to hunt Dogman." Two things you see when you hear that. One, the guy's an idiot. Two, the guy don't stand a chance. Or three, he's blowing smoke up your ass. I've seen these things. I got one that lives around here with a pack that I feed. I throw out turkey bones and stuff like that there, and he cleans it up. But would I actually go out there and sit there and play a hand of poker with him in the pack? No. My neighbors have seen them. They've asked me about it. One neighbor had one get in the back of his truck, licking the bed of his truck because he had a dead deer in there. And he had taken the deer to the locker and didn't clean up the back of his truck, and some bitch was in there licking the blood up out of the back of his truck. And he called me and asked me what I seen on my cameras. So yeah, I've got some lizards around here, and they are huge. Have they ever attacked me? No. But I don't give them a reason to either. I don't go out there and say, hey, let me comb your hair. Or I ain't like some of these dinglings. Like to have that hit on my wall. No, I don't, because it would scare the shit out of you. No, I live and let live. That's the way I deal with them. I don't have no problem out of them. Don't ever aim a gun at one unless you're planning on killing it, because you do, it'll probably be the last thing you do. They aren't dumb. And definitely don't take a shot unless it's a life or death situation, because he may have been just checking you out. But now you shot at him, now he's going to take your ass out. And if you see one, usually there's 2 or 3 standing around that you don't see that's watching you. Leave them alone. This next story comes from a guy that works with my dad out there on the river. I'm only going to use his first name because I don't have his permission to use his last name. They called him Big Al. He was a big sumbitch. He was like 7 foot tall. I seen him one time too. I rode the boat when he was on there one time. He was the second engineer, and my dad was running first engineer. And they would switch off and on. Great big dude, looked like a mountain man. Real long hair, big old bushy beard. Hell, he could have worked on plane for ZZ Top, probably. But he had a voice that was just as soft. His voice did not match his stature. They should have called him Gentle Ben, because he acted real docile. Probably unless you piss him off, then he'd bend you in half, spit down your crack. I used to have fun talking to him. My dad go to bed, I go back and sometimes sit and talk to him. One time I wasn't at the pilot house or sitting there shooting the shit with the deckhands, telling dirty jokes. But I was back there sitting with him one time, and I tell you, I asked you a question, Big Al, because we were sitting back in the engineer office. Once you shut them doors, it's pretty much noise-proof in there. You don't hear the motors running right there beside you. We was sitting there. I said, I got to ask you a question, because he's from down along the Gulf Coast area, down like Louisiana and that area. He goes, well, shoot, little man, what is it? I said, hey, did anybody tell you about up there by St. Paul, Minnesota, when that dog man got out on the tow and poor Dickie Bird was running for his life? He goes, I don't think so. I said, well, it did happen. I was on here that night. And I said, it's wonder that little Dickie Bird didn't get fucking killed. He started laughing. He goes, really? He said, that's something like a wolf man or werewolf? I said, yeah, but it ain't a man that changes into this. That's what they are all the time. So I started kind of telling him explaining what a dog man was. He goes, well, we call him something else down south. And I can't remember exactly what it was. I think he called it something like a rougarou or something like that. He was working for another towing company down there, another motor vessel company down there, and they was working there in the Gulf of Mexico, Gulf of America, what Trump calls it now. And he said, we tied up in a place just offshore. And we had a little bit of a layover, so we was all sitting there. And he said, it's pretty quiet. And he said, I was working in the engine room that night. He said, that's right after I got my certification. And he said, I was in the office in there. And he said, what nothing going on? So he said, I was kind of kicked back and going to catch me a cat nap. He said, I had the radio turned on in case captain or deckhands needed me for something. He said, all of a sudden, the radio come alive, and he said, I hurried up and jumped up and answered it. It was Captain. And he goes, hey, those two doors back there in the engine room, shut and lock them now. Okay. Is there any particular reason? He goes, something is on board. Somebody got on board that don't belong. So Big Al, he, roger that, he went to lock the big doors. Well, he pulled the safety latch for the steering because them big hydraulic arms back there squish you to death. And he went to the back of the ship, but he was on the inside in the steering room, and he slid that big door shut and locked it. He goes back into the office and he goes, all secured. So he's sitting back there. The engines are at just kind of an idle, but they're still loud when they're idling, especially inside that boat back there in the engine room. They have to wear headphones. Otherwise you go deaf after a while. Now, when you go to the engine room, you walk this catwalk. On each side, even with you down below, on each side, according to how many stacks there is on the outside, as to how many engines is downstairs, underwater, but inside the ship. He's hearing something down there, and there's a hallway. So if you go down there where you're down under the water level, that's the big compartment for the engine. Well, in the center of that, there's a long hallway that goes all the way to the front of the boat. And it comes up just inside the bulkhead, which is the wall, before you go outside. And they hang all kinds of stuff down through there, stuff that don't need to be used right at the moment. They also store ropes and stuff in there. It's just a big storage area is what it is, but it's like a long hallway. Well, he's hearing chain binders down there being thrown. Now, Big Al never got riled about too much of anything. I'd hate to see him get riled up because he'd hurt somebody bad. He's just a big, gentle teddy bear. He said, I went running back into that office. I slammed that door, and he said, I locked that son of a bitch. And he said, I pulled the curtains down. He said, I radioed to the captain. He goes, there's somebody or something down below in the engine compartments in that gangway, that hallway. And he says, down there throwing chain binders and all kinds of shit down there. Send the deckhands back here. Well, 3 or 4 deckhands come running to the back. The other 3 or 4 went to the front. But before they got to the front, this thing had come running out, run past them. And of course, they all jumped back like, what the hell? This thing made one leap off of them barges. And it leaped from that barge toward the shore. It leaped about 10 foot. Hit water and paddled the rest way in, got up a running. Big Al was shook. Them deckhands, they all quit that night. Big Al said, he said, I radioed the captain, told him, he said, me and the deckhands are coming up. We're turning our walking papers. We don't know part of this shit. Well, Big Al ended up going to work for River City Towing to get away from what he had witnessed down there that night. And of course, dumbass me, I was the one that told him about what had happened. He goes, I left a job that was paying me more than this one here, thinking I could get away from the dog man, and now you're telling me that the dog man in Minnesota? I said, they're all over the place. He goes, I only thought they was down south. I said, no, they're all over the place. Of course, nowadays we know different. They are all over. They're also in other countries, too. Or so I hear. But he kept telling me about down there where he was at. They have werewolves down there. Rougarou, whatever you want to call it. People that shift into werewolf. Now, I don't know too much about that. It seems a little bit impossible. But then again, I've seen a lot of things that seem impossible. So, I can't fully discount the werewolf thing. If there can be fairies, little people, why not? Our world ain't what they tell us. Lots of mysterious shit. So anyway, that was just 2 accounts. There's other accounts of things that I've seen out there. And I'm sure these guys have seen a lot more than I have. But I just thought it was 2 stories that need to be brought to light. Maybe you know somebody that works out there in the river. Maybe you're married to a pilot or a captain or a cook. Or maybe your brother's a deckhand. Who knows? But I just thought I'd throw them 2 stories out there because I haven't never heard nobody doing stories like those 2, and those are 2 true stories. I'll give you one more short story about the river. We was tied up, the Hornet was, and I was on there with my dad, and Captain Norris was on there, Dickie Bird, and Big Al. There was a place we was going to tie up, and there was already 3 boats sitting there, so we got permission to tie up to this one boat that was empty. I think it's because they were going to refurbish it or something. I don't know what happened to it, but it was there. So we pulled in, tied up to the boat, the empty motor vessel. And we was kind of looking at the other 2 boats, and every person that's on a ship, their ship's always the best one. Yeah, no kidding. So me and Norris was sitting up there talking, and he goes, those 2 southern boats there, they're a lot bigger than this Hornet. I said, yeah, but this is still the better boat. He just looked at me and smiled, and he goes, I knew I liked you for a reason. And of course, we just laughed it off. Well, later that night, me and Norris was up there eating ice cream at 2 o'clock in the morning. And everything's pretty quiet. There's a little bit of river traffic talking on the radio, and we're sitting there listening and eating ice cream, shooting the shit. He goes, does that empty boat that we're tied up to, does that give you a little bit of creeps? Yeah, it does. So we're sitting there eating ice cream, shooting the shit again. And all of a sudden, I seen him stop midway, and that ice cream in his spoon fell into the bowl. And I was like, what the hell is he looking at? He's looking out the side at this empty boat. So I set my bowl down, and I'm following his eyes to see what the hell is he seeing. He's sitting there with his mouth open. Looks like he's going to catch a fly. Now, the lights inside there was turned down on dim, pretty low. And I looked in that wheelhouse that sat just a little bit lower than the wheelhouse of the Hornet. The door that had been closed that was facing us was now open. There was a dog man. At first we thought it was a wolf, because it was on all fours. That was in there, and it was just staring. And them amber-colored eyes were just glowing. This thing went from all fours, stood up straight. If you ever seen inside of one of these wheelhouses, they're pretty tall. This thing was so tall, it actually had to bend down because it was too tall. Norris finally come out of it, grabbed the radio and radioed them other two boats, and told them, he said, hey, he didn't call them dogmen, he called them rougarous, I think is how he pronounced it. He kind of had a funny accent. And he goes, hey, did you guys see that rougarou in that empty ship? Dead silence. He goes, hey, boat 1 and 2, do you see that rougarou in that damn wheelhouse, in that empty boat? All of a sudden, one of the deckhands come on and they said, our captain can't answer you. He's indisposed at the time. North's like, indisposed? He goes, yeah, he shit himself. He seen that dog man before you said something, and he shit himself. Captain 2, do you see that? And all of a sudden he stopped. That other captain run out of the wheelhouse, down the stairs. He was nowhere to be seen. Now I can bet you $500 that if any of those deckhands said anything about that captain leaving that wheelhouse empty, you can bet your ass he probably got fired. Well, let me tell you something. I guess because of the lure of where Captain Norris was from, the next time I seen him, he had a small box with 5 silver bullets in it. I guess that's because of what they believe down there, you know, where he's from, that silver bullets kill a werewolf. But he had 5 silver bullets made, probably for that reason. I did see them. And he carried them with him every time he got on the boat. And he go up to the wheelhouse, he had that little box with them 5 bullets in there. So like I said, if you know somebody out there, you've ever rode on one of these things, at nighttime they can be a little creepy. I don't care how good looking the boat is on the inside. It's knowing that that water is dark, and without a light, you can't see shit out there. Now, we all know dogmen exist. So don't think that being out there on that riverboat, that motor vessel, or even if you're out boating on a pontoon boat out there in the river at nighttime, if a dog can swim the river, and a human can, a dog man can too. and can pull himself right up on that damn boat. So don't think just because you see one along the shoreline that you're safe. They can swim right out there where you're at and get right on that boat. They ain't scared of much of anything. So just think about that one next time you're out there on a pontoon boat at nighttime doing some night fishing. That'll make your asshole cut washers right there. Thinking about that shit. It's like this, though. I will tell you this. If a dog man ever got after me, I can tell you right now, I would outrun that dog man. You know why? As I was running, he'd be slipping and sliding in my shit. Fall down, try to clean himself off while I was getting away. That's a joke. Yeah, I thought I'd throw that one in there. Surprise y'all. So yeah, probably the best thing to do if a dog man got after you, best thing to do is do this. Go, time out. Hopefully he stops. If not, well. But if he does stop, stick your head between your legs and kiss your ass goodbye before he grabs a hold of you. That's about the best prayer I can tell you to say. Because you don't stand a chance if one of them decides to take you out. I just ever hope that I'm never on the bad end of one of those meetings. I take a lot of precautions, though. I don't go outside messing around. I take my dog out to go to the bathroom, but I got security cameras all around my house, too. Now, I'll tell you something. You might keep this in mind. If you're having dogman problems, or you've been seeing them around your place, listen closely. Don't put up wireless cameras. Dude, they're hit and miss. Get you wired cameras, security cameras, night vision, and day vision. Because I'll tell you a secret. Those things, the cameras outside, have them little red infrared lights. Little red ones. And they glow. Now your Bigfoot, your dogmen, and some of these other creatures, they see that and they know what that means. It will deter a lot of them. They'll stay away a little bit. If you don't believe me, you ever seen those trail cameras that are day and night vision that snap the photos? Those have an infrared light too. That's why you don't see a lot of pictures of Bigfoot and dogmen catching them walking by. They'll see that red light a mile off and go around to the back side of that tree and screw with the camera. But you don't see a whole lot of real photos taken with those security cameras or those trail cameras. Because they see that. And they ain't gonna come close to it. They'll go around behind it. Tear it off a tree. Throw it, beat up on it, chew on it. But that's the truth. I got some to come up in my backyard. I don't monkey with them. I don't shoot at them or nothing. I have to get onto my dogs. My dog likes to growl at them. And they growl back, and that's enough right there to make you shit yourself. But they don't come right up against my house because I got cameras all the way around my house. There ain't a place around my house I can't walk my wife can't see me. And that's why they don't come up right against the house. Now my neighbor, Yeah, he's heard them right up against his house, but he ain't got cameras either. So anyway, just something to think about. Put you up a few security cameras, night vision, and kind of like putting out Wolfbane. Well, I kept you guys on there too long, and I thought I'd give you a few stories because I kind of slacked. I took a day off. So I thought I'd give you a couple of good stories. Those are true. My dad did work out there in the river. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed the story. Hope I entertained you a little bit. It's a lot better to listen to stories than it is to watch the news and all this lies and bullshit going on. I don't watch TV much anymore. I think personally, it ought to go back to just the storytelling days, where people sit around and tell true stories, true ghost stories, dogmen stories. Get away from the local news that's full of shit. Well, I'll get out of here and hope you enjoyed. If not, at least I hope you was entertained. That's better than watching grass grow or betting on frog races. So you all have a good night, and we'll talk again. I got all kinds of stuff. We never know what we're going to talk about. But I always got some ghost stories or cryptid stories. So stay tuned. There'll be more to come. A lot more. We'll laugh together, cry together, and may even crap ourselves. You never know. But if you're older than me or older, we can blame it on old age. There's a thought. Like, oh God, I just shit myself. Old age, that's what I'll blame it on. It's kind of like when you make a mistake. Instead of blaming yourself about the mistake, blame your pencil. Okay, well, I'm going to get the hell out of here, and I need a cigarette, soda. Yeah, probably not in that order, but y'all have a good night. I'll talk to you on the next one. Thank you for watching, and stay tuned. I got a lot more to come. Y'all have a good night.